All right. Hi guys. So it's another Tuesday, another episode of Founders or Reddit chats, sorry. My brain is
We've
very
got to figure
all
out the
over the
title. Is
place.
it going to be Reddit chats, Reddit
Reddit
Q&A,
chats.
ask me everything, answer everything? We'll figure it out.
Right. Right. Cool. So if Luke you could go into like the different things that we're going to be talking
Yeah,
about today.
awesome. Thanks, Andrea. So we've got a few questions today from Reddit that are really representative of the majority of our community. Some of these answers we've kind of answered in a way before, but it's great to see people still struggling. It's great to see people still struggling with the same things in that these are the
Yeah.
things people should be thinking about, right? So it's good to
Yeah.
see people have the awareness to think about them. The topics we're going to cover today or the questions that are out there in the communities. I've built a great product. How
Hmm.
do I continue to market it when I'm running out of marketing budget? How do I handle team burnout after a really intense quarter? A small habit that really made your work life easier.
Hmm.
SaaS founders, how did you decide what not to build? And the big one that we've seen week in, week out, I'm struggling with pricing my AI tool, needs some thoughts. So all really topical. Some of them are evergreen, right? Building a
Hmm.
product without being able to market it,
Hmm.
small habit that helped shift your work life balance or helped you more productive. And then I guess an emerging one that people are starting to see now is this struggling with AI pricing. So keen to dig
Right.
into that and share some insights that we've had with some of our clients at Baremetrics. But I guess to kick it off, we'll start with our build a great product. So this
Hmm.
was posted in the startup community, and it was really interesting reading through this post and trying to understand what they're actually selling. A lot of the time on Reddit, you'll get a little bit of insight about I've got this problem, but every problem needs context for you to provide a more direct answer, right? And it's similar here, but we'll talk about it in general. So I've got a really great digital product. First testers really liked it. Everyone I talk to really loves the product and are impressed. Literally everyone sees great potential. Now I'll stop the whole question there because a lot of the time that is uh, people telling you what you want to hear when you're launching a new endeavor, right?
Right.
Absolutely, you should quit your job and go after those dreams. Absolutely, yes, people. Yes, there's people out there a product because as soon as you say it costs $10, oh,
It's not
yeah, and
free.
I'm not gonna. I'm probably yeah, right. So there's
Yeah.
there's there's these other elements that play into that positive
Yeah.
feedback loop. So it's great to see that you've got initial feedback, but it has to be tempered with these aren't paying customers yet, right?
Hmm.
So the MVP is ready, fully functional, and has a lot of content inside. This is the digital product this person's talking about. But I only have $600 left to market. I wanted to set up some Facebook ads, but the target demographic is 200 million, which immediately tells me your ICP is not dialed in enough. So
Yeah.
it's a lot of people. Uh, they talk about the impressions and the clicks, etc., etc. I'm not sure if these ads are a waste of money. Ambassadors are going to cost me around 2,500 up front.
Mhm.
I've also talked to influencers, but they just want money. I'm a bit stuck. I build everything I could. Now I need the money to continue without much of a budget. Any advice on how to continue? The edit there, it's a B2C and the target demographic are dog owners. And when I read that last edit, I was like, that's just blown up half your problem because you're talking about a target demographic of 200,000. This is the problem we always see in SaaS startups where we say, what is your total addressable market? And they say,
Mhm.
dog owners, dog owners,
Yeah.
every dog owner in the world, right? And it's like,
Yeah.
okay, so you're going to be, the next Kong chew toy company in the world. And it's like, no,
Mhm.
no, but we do this particular thing very well. Okay, so it's not dog owners, it's dog owners that have this problem, right?
Mhm.
So we can immediately drill down from that 200 million and refine that further. But even if it is a generic offering to every single dog owner in the world, the people
Mhm.
you want to talk to in the first instance are really going to be those that you can get in front of, right?
Right.
And so I think the fact that they've already called out dog owners, that's refined their focus. And the
Mhm.
thing that's really cool to me, if we think about how we try and identify a Baremetrics user, for example, we
Mhm.
know that they have Stripe, ChargeBee, Recurly, etc., as their subscription management tool. We have a whole range of job titles. We have a whole range of industries. We have a whole range of countries that people use us from. So our
Mhm.
ability to effectively go out and talk to a segment of our ICP is really dictated by how many filters we want to apply at any given time. This person can walk out the street and see their ICP walking past them. There is a dog owner. I'm going to go talk to them, right?
Yeah.
Straight up. If your product is designed for dog owners, regardless of status or other filter,
Mhm.
then go to a park, sit down at a dog park, go to a local market, right? Sit down and talk to dog owners, show them the product, get the product in front of them,
Mhm.
pitch the benefits. right? Give it away to a few of them. Run a competition.
Hmm.
Get a photo with your dog and win 3 months access to this great digital product that I've built for dog owners. Then start to email them, then get feedback. I think this person's probably getting hung up on the idea that they need to spend money on marketing
Hmm.
when, as we've said a lot of the time in startups, you need to do the hard things first, right? And in this case, it
Right.
would be do the legwork, talk to the people. And the fact that you can see your ICP because they are dog owners, then, all the better for it.
Hmm.
The context we're missing here is what particular function does your app, digital product, they're calling it, do for dog owners? And does that refine it down further? Like, is it a marketplace for dog walkers in your area, right?
Hmm.
Therefore, it's only people who want other people to walk their dogs, or maybe people that work away for long periods of time and don't want their dogs to be lonely. Like, you start to see these filters
Hmm.
that you can apply further, but
Hmm.
without any additional context. That would be my advice, would be to get out in front of the people, talk to them, set up a market stall, sit down in your local area, go to a dog park. Your ICP is there in front of you. You don't have to look too far to find them. You're actually in a better position than a lot of SaaS companies where the ICP is very blurry, very grey, and hard to target effectively.
Hmm.
So in many ways, I'm envious. Yeah.
But you bring up a good point. Like you could go to like a WeWork in your area or something and
Right.
have the same kind of like you would definitely find at least one SaaS business. Maybe not necessarily like that's open to buying what you want, right? But
Yeah.
talking to them and just having that face-to-face interaction just feels more organic than, finding them on any other type of
Right.
place.
Yeah,
So,
and people love, like in this case, people love dogs, right? Go
yeah.
go join a dog walking group around town, walk the dogs, and take some shorts, to some videos of you interacting with the dogs in a way that leads into you discussing your product, like how it
Yeah.
helps, whatever it might be. Yeah, that to me is it's just about doing the grind. I think the easy thing is throw $1,200 at Facebook ads and hope for the best.
Mm.
The grind is get after it yourself, like get in there and,
Right.
and, and get it done. Yeah.
Right, and like one of the commenters even says like it says this like, "Oh, you literally could just create content around this, like short form content, post it on TikTok and one of them could go viral. Like you don't have to spend money on it."
Yeah.
So yeah. And then that point of you like refining your ICP even further. Like if there's something very specific about your dog digital product,
Yeah.
make sure that that is more refined so that you can more focus on that than
Yeah.
thinking of all
And
of the market.
and and just in general, in a comment, I know people can be very guarded when it comes to sharing their ideas on Reddit or wherever else for fear of someone stealing their
Mm.
unicorn idea, right?
Right.
And this person here is kind of suffering the same fate. And you see some of the comments there that says, one person says, "What problem does your product solve?" You could have led with that as like, I have a digital product that solves this problem in the dog industry, and people
Hmm.
would give you far greater advice. The person just comes back and says, "It's the pet industry for dogs and it's B2C." Okay, like again, there's no real problem that's being solved there,
Yeah.
and they've got a really engaged thread here. Like I think, what is it? How many comments and upvotes here? 36 comments, right?
Yeah.
So you've got people engaged with wanting to help, and you can't really give that specific advice lacking context.
Hmm.
Um, but yeah, that's a cool one. I would envy the ability to sit down at my local park and say, "There's my ICP. There's my ICP. There's my ICP." Like,
Yeah.
what a day! I'd be out there every day selling. Yeah.
Yeah.
All right, great.
Cool.
Well, start off on a high note with the dogs. Love that.
Hmm. Hmm.
Moving on to the second one, we're back in the managers subreddit. We're looking here at how to handle team burnout after a grueling quarter. So I'm going to assume here that the people commenting and interacting in the managers community are managers
Hmm.
themselves and are
Hmm.
potentially looking to better their leadership style and better the way they go about things.
Hmm.
The individual here comments that they've just wrapped up an exhausting quarter, multiple high stakes deliverables, running at full capacity for weeks. The work got done, but they're noticing signs of burnout now, increased sick days, missed deadlines, drop in engagement during meetings. Some team members expressed feeling overwhelmed.
Hmm.
Uh, and this person wants to address it before it snowballs into bigger retention or performance problems. Do we give a small break in workload, but the upper leadership expects them to jump right into new projects, et cetera, et cetera? Have you ever faced this kind of post-crunch burnout in your team, and what strategies work for you to rebuild energy and engagement? Um, so I'd start with two things there. You need to have an assessment of how much what I would call social equity or corporate equity do you have as an individual manager to be able to influence these kind of decisions. A lot
Mm-hmm.
of the time you might be a middle manager, but your opinion and your output is well respected by leadership. So if you
Mm-hmm.
go to them and say, hey guys, the team's burnout, like we need some buffer. We need a week of just, you know, decreased load time just to get our heads back in the game and refocus and go from there.
Mm-hmm.
That's the first thing first, right? Communication and actually letting people know. I always say that unspoken expectations are tomorrow's resentments, right? And a lot of the
Yep.
time, you could be in your head thinking, "Man, I can't believe the boss is making us, jump straight into the next project." When in actual fact, if you raised your hand and said, "Hey, boss, I don't think we can jump into the next project straight away. We need a bit of a break," the boss might be like, "Oh yeah, no worries, absolutely, yeah, sorry, I completely forgot that you guys just came off that sprint." And like, you know what I mean? Like, unless you articulate that and communicate that effectively, you might
Mm-hmm.
be doing yourself a disservice, and you're going to start to resent leadership for overworking you and your team. When in
Right.
actual fact, they might be amicable to it. So, I think
Mm-hmm.
communication is the first step. What actual tactics do we have available to be able to go through burnout? One thing, when I used to work in my previous role before SaaS, we would have financial year targets, as most people do, quarterly targets as well.
Mm-hmm.
The financial year was the big one because that was kind of contracted, and that would be the real measure of success as to whether we hit the milestones that we were expected to hit, and to what degree. So 100% was always stretch and beyond, whereas our sweet spot was generally between sort of 90 to 95%. That was our expected achievement in a stretch perspective. We'd
Mm-hmm.
spent a couple of years sort of subpar below that 90%. And then one year it started looking really strong. And we're like, hey, we're going to hit 95% this year. Like, really, everything projection was on.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but it wasn't without work. We had to work to get there. We did a lot of, um, shuffling, juggling, etc., to get it all done. But we got it right. And there was this big sigh of relief. And I guess being a financial year, it was easy to sort of just step back and take a break and then go, okay, we've got another 12 months before that hustle needs to happen again.
Right.
But in the quarterly grind, even just delivering a project, then having a couple of days of at the end of the project going out for a meal, going out for a drink or whatever it might be, and the next week just sort of maybe reflecting on that project as opposed to starting the new one, do a bit
Mm-hmm.
of an after action review, because I think that's part of the problem of jumping straight into the next one as well, that facilitates that burnout. If there were problems with delivery, if there were problems with the velocity of the previous project that aren't addressed before you move into the next one, then you're doomed to repeat the same mistakes. And that overwork and that burnout is just going to compound over time. So
Right.
I'd suggest, even from a manager's perspective, if you're not able to communicate the need of we need a break or a slowdown, communicate the need of having to reflect on the previous project
Mm-hmm.
in order to ensure that the next one is better. And that gives you a week of breathing time, because you're not actually delivering outputs there for the new project. You're a bit more low tempo, going through an after action review, identifying the strengths, the weaknesses, the areas for improvement, and then you can sort of roll into the next project from there. So that's another buffer to do
Mm-hmm.
it. But rebuilding energy and engagement while keeping the business moving,
I
I think
feel
yeah,
oh I feel like the big brain meme that you just said that. Like I was like, wow, I never even thought about that of like conducting a post mortem on a project
yeah,
and like having that as like the buffer time. That's
yeah,
smart. Like it does two. It's like a twofer essentially. You get reflection on what went wrong and you can fix it for the next one, and you also get that buffer time that everyone needs to kind of
yeah.
recharge and yeah, get
Because
to the next
you
thing.
run the risk of missing lessons learned, right? It's
Right.
again, if you're running at a high percentage. And the last thing I'll say here is, again, this is a leadership problem in
Hmm.
all effects. Like, you either need to communicate to leadership, and leadership need to take the lead on being able to give you downtime, or um, go through a reduced tempo period.
Hmm.
So I'll talk about two things. One, I'll talk about my philosophy when it comes to this, but also then my resolution.
Hmm.
I used to have a boss that I still remember. We were on a course, and we'd spend 2 weeks just flat out. We were doing late nights. We were doing presentations during the day. A lot of reading, a lot of analysis, like a lot of mental load. On top of that, we were doing physical stuff as well. But he came into the lecture theatre one day and he said, "Hey, who here's operating at 100%?" And we're all like, "Yeah." And he's like, "You're a failure." And we're like, "What?" And it wasn't some sort of, Grant Cardone. It wasn't some big motivational speech about how we're failures and we need to do better. It
Yeah.
was, if he said, if you're operating at 100%
Mm,
constantly, when I come to you and ask you to do any additional task or surge, you're not going to have anything left to give. He said, so never be operating at 100% for longer than you have to, right? So if we're at that 2 week mark and we've been operating at 100% completely flat chat, and he comes in and goes, "Hey team, here's this new task," we're not going to be able to achieve it. We're going to be a failure because we're not going to be able to surge. And so his
mhm,
his story there behind that concept was that when you're managing teams in high performance environments, you need to understand that one, you've probably got very motivated, very driven individuals in those teams. Um, Two, you're putting them into a position where you expect them to work hard and they expect to be worked hard. But as a leader, it's your responsibility to look at them and say, how long have I kept them redlining for? And when do I need to turn that dial back? Because
mhm,
again, if you add additional load to them, they'll burn out, they'll, collapse themselves on a dying star. So my philosophy has always been I expect my team to be anywhere between 80 and 100% at any given time, right?
mhm,
Because when I come to them and say, all right, team, here's this next surge I need you to put in for the next 2 weeks, then you need to have capacity to go into that space. If you
mhm.
don't and you're continually redlining, then you're of no use to me, right? And that's the same with myself. There's a lot of reflection in that as well, because you can find yourself digging into a lot of tasks and be like, things just aren't happening, things aren't working. Uh, and you realize you've been running at something so hard that you've got nothing left to give, and you're probably just going to throw everything up in the air and say, I'm done, versus recognize when you have to surge and dial back. So that's one part of it. And I guess that the resolution for me there, um, talk to management, make sure that they understand the burnout. Consider implementing reduced tempo periods. This is something we do across our business and across others. We've got unlimited leave, so we're flexible with our leave policy. But overall, we know there's periods of the year where we can afford to sort of dial back a little bit. Generally,
Mhm.
for us, it's around July. So in July, we usually have a week or so where we sort of say, "Hey, let's not book any client calls. Let's just cut away any unnecessary internal meetings. Let's just have a week where you're working at your own pace, dealing with things you need to deal with, get out, do your admin, etc." And then we obviously see the same thing over Christmas period, shut down over Christmas, have some time off. So actually dedicating reduced tempo periods is also effective, I think. But yeah, that's a tough one. It's how well you can manage up, essentially.
Right. This is kind of a tangent. And I know we don't really have tangent time, but
Yeah.
going back to the other question, um, how are you able to identify, or how are you able to build social equity, like up with,
Yeah.
like if you're a manager and you're
Mhm.
building up with senior leadership, how do you do that? How do you
So
consciously build
it's one of those things that's actually tough to consciously build. And to me, it's
it?
never
Right.
so much an up movement, it's a cross.
Mhm.
And so I always
Mm,
use the social equity concept when I was talking about change management. When you
mhm,
want a whole group to change, you
mhm,
don't have to talk to everyone the same way. You don't have to position the change the same way, right? There's a concept that change that affects the individual should come from their one up. Change that affects the organization should come from the organization down. And
mhm,
so when we think about that and you say, I want this whole team to start doing this new process, if I go to the
mhm.
whole team and say, hey, team, here's the new process, go and do it, it'll be a slow grind. If I find that person that's been in that job for 15 years, that
Mhm,
stores their paper files in the drawer next to their desk, that has been, the person that says, hey, we're going to go do this on Friday. Who's in? And I goes, yeah, I'm for that. Someone who has that weight within the social setting of the work environment. You bring them in, you make them a change champion, right? And you say, hey, I really want, you've been identified as someone who's really effective at managing change. I think you're going to benefit from this change the most. I'd love for you to be my feedback, my, what do you call it? Someone to bounce ideas off,
mhm,
and I think you can really help me, right, shape this change effectively. And so that person gets a bit of a pump.
mhm.
You big them up a little bit, and then they help influence the others, because if the others see that person in the new state, in the new change, then they're more likely to do it themselves. And similarly here, it's more about just delivering on what you promise, right? If you're an effective operator and you're delivering on your job, you're delivering on uh, reliability to others, you're seen as someone who is doing what they said they would do and doing it well. That's how you build up that equity. I've never seen it be a conscious thing. It's more an
Mm.
outside in. You can see in social networks within an organization, particularly in a corporate environment, who
Mhm.
has influence in their peer
Mhm.
group just by way of sitting in meetings, watching interactions in the break room. You get it, right? You can see it. And so um, I think managing up is similar. If you have been shown to be reliable, if you have shown to be an individual contributor that is potentially outweighed in your output versus others, then you should take it upon yourself to know that if management identify that effectively, if they're good management, if they're good leadership, and they see that, then you could probably head in there and have that conversation a little bit easier than someone else who maybe doesn't have that
Mm.
same level of social equity. Yeah.
Mm. Interesting.
It's a tough one. I've never seen it be a deliberate. It's not like I'm going to go and say I want to be more influential in the workplace and therefore I'm going to do X, Y, and Z. It's
Yeah.
just one of these things that builds up over time. And again, it's more easily identifiable outside looking in. Yeah.
Mm. Mm.
All
Interesting.
right. Let's move on. We're
Cool.
back in the SaaS community. What is one small habit that surprisingly made your work life easier?
Hmm.
Lately, I've been noticing that it's not always the big systems, any fancy tools that change how I work, sometimes small habits. For me, it's something as simple as writing down tomorrow 3 priorities before logging off. It's a little ritual that calms me down. I'm curious, what is the underrated thing you do that ended up making your work life smoother? Could be anything, mindset shift, random routine, or even some weird shortcut you swear by. So about 60 odd comments on this thread. So everyone's got their little hack, I think. And I don't know. What have we got? Turning off non-urgent notifications, 30 minutes every morning just to think. Uh, Hand over notes to myself, write it down, your thoughts. Doing the best thing first in the morning, getting little wins underway, going to the gym first thing in the morning, leave my phone on silent. Yeah, I think like little. I think the concept here, what is one small habit? It's never really the habit itself, but it's the behavior that it then instills, right? And so this person talks about writing down 3 priorities before logging off.
Hmm.
So that allows them to really have a clear idea of what they expect of themselves the next morning, but
Hmm.
also unload some of that stress of thinking, what am I going to do tomorrow, or where was my mind yesterday? So even
Hmm.
just writing a notes, the habit there is then that it's not so much writing it down the day before, it's then knocking those 3 priorities off the next morning first thing, which then gives them a little bit of a adrenaline bump, bit of a feedback. I've achieved something today. So yeah, I think habit stacking is one way that people have spoken about when you look at the you know any business minded individuals uh, will habit stack as they go to try and make the most of their time. I myself, my habits aren't really that unique or like hacky or surprising. I have dedicated time in my calendar for nothing. I have dedicated time in my calendar for things, right? And then everything else is meeting. So if I have a particular part of work that I need to focus on for the next couple of weeks, I'll call out my calendar and just have that there. Whether I use that time for that task or not is up to me. But I know all else being equal, I can fall back into that spot if something comes up, right? And so if someone pings me about that particular topic, I'm like, okay, that's not my thought time at the moment. That'll come later. So I'll just mark it down in that calendar entry and go from there. Um, I think the other things like keeping stupid questions is good. I often do that in Slack. I'll just
Hmm.
post in Slack when I have a thought or a question, so I don't lose it. And I, you guys will see this. I ping you occasionally with an idea for content at some random hour, and it's more so that I don't need it action. I just need it down somewhere out of my head.
Hmm.
So I think that's an easier way to do it as well. Just document things as they occur.
Right.
Um, the other ones that are interesting is understand how your brain works. And this is why I can't speak for everyone because I start my mornings quite early. So I have quite a bit of, and I
Understatement.
can't, right, I can't go to the gym first thing in the morning. It just doesn't
Yeah.
fit my work schedule. So I can't go outside and get that first morning sun or that first sort of exercise to get me going.
Hmm.
But I can recognize that due to me starting early, my brain is not in a position to make big decisions or executive movements first thing. So what am I going to do first? I'm going to clear my emails and I'm going to clear Slack. For the first half hour, I do nothing but low cognitive load tasks in order to ease my way into it, right?
Hmm.
After that first half hour, I'm generally going to be in meetings for the next 3 to 4, right? So I'm now in that engaged process of talking, discussing, brainstorming. And then after that is when I have my me time, right? That's when I can make decisions. That's when I can analyze dashboards, graphs, reports, and start to formulate ideas, right? And then the final part of my day is probably my me doing things, right? Rewriting a blog, going in and adjusting Google Ads settings, going through Reddit or our recordings, right? And editing some stuff there. So knowing how your brain works and at what point in your workday are you most likely to be able to make executive decisions, do flow state sort of work.
Hmm.
Look into that. That's a really useful way to understand what type of tasks you are able to do at any given time, and it will be different depending on what your work routine is. So that's a good one as well. Yeah.
That's a good one. I think for me personally, there's two things. I've completely like brain rotted. I think it's I've completely brain rotted my attention span.
Yeah.
So I have these like apps that like shut my phone.
Sure.
So I can't like it says like and it has a timer like I'm focusing for 40 minutes or I'm focusing
Mm-hmm.
for 60 minutes and like at the end it'll give me like a break time.
Yep.
So like finding that, how to spurts. Another thing is I write down like everything. Ooh, I
Yeah.
write down everything that I need to do for the day and like cross it
Yeah.
off. Like it's not necessarily I guess it's a to-do list, but it's like just working of like, oh, this comes up as I'm doing it,
Mm-hmm.
but I'm a bit ADHD, so I'm like I'm not gonna do it now because like my inclination is to do it now.
Yeah.
Um, I'm not gonna do it. I'm just gonna write it down so that I have it and I'm not gonna forget it. But yeah, I've been trying to overcome those like impulses that kind of get in my way because
Yeah.
there are sometimes where there are days where I'm less focused and I am like, oh my gosh, there's all these things on my to-do list. Like, let me try to do all of them at the same time. And
Mm-hmm.
I'm like, that's not a good idea at all.
Yeah, it comes down to
Yeah,
discipline, right? It's any habit, anything like that is discipline. So you can
yeah,
implement a habit, but doing it is the other thing.
yeah.
I started the year with a Notion doc of I think it was 3 different columns, which was like operations, marketing, and sales. And
Mhm.
then I would write down my tasks for the week, and then I would go through and mark them off as they occurred, and then I'd refresh that on Friday. I did that for like 3 weeks, and I was like, "This is no, like it's just not working for me." Like I saw it, sure, I had a checklist, but I didn't feel like I was adding anything to my productivity apart from the hassle of actually filling it out myself. So habits and discipline, be able to do things that worked as well. But
Yeah.
yeah, that's what it comes down to. Bit of discipline and doing what you say you're going to do. Pomodoro is the other one. Pomodoro that really worked well for me, and I should probably reinstall it. You can get it as a web extension or a browser extension, I should say. I think it's 25-minute chunks of focus work with a
Mhm.
5-minute break. You do
Mhm.
that 3 times through, then you get a bigger 15-minute break. So it
Mhm.
actually it actually gives you like a reward for that longer term flow. I think you can set your Pomodoro chunks, but that's the standard way to
Yeah.
do it. That's a really good way to that whole delayed gratification thing. I've only got to work for 25 minutes and I'm going to get a break. A little timer goes off, the icon flashes up, you take your break, you're back into it, start task again, and that sort of manages that space a little bit better for you if you can be disciplined enough to get through it. Yeah.
Mhm.
All right, we're running through time, so let's get into these last couple. This one's gonna be an easy one. In in that it's easy and hard. How do you decide what not to build?
Mhm.
Every SaaS founder has a backlog of feature requests. Too many startups to build everything. Overwhelming users while building out their dev team. How do you decide what features to cut or delay? And if you're a customer, what's the one feature bloat mistake that makes you churn? I think I don't think it's necessarily. I don't think users will say there's feature bloat unless you're asking them to pay for it and they're not using it. But
Right.
the deciding what not to build is so that the inverse of that equation is how do you decide what to build? Really, that comes down to what is the core value proposition of your product and are you solving that problem effectively? Then when you want to start figuring out additional features or benefits that complement the core of your product, it comes down to, is there revenue associated with it, right? Follow the data. Ask your current clients in sales calls, in success calls, we are considering building this feature. What do you think? Receive the feedback. And again, this is similar to that previous question we answered. They're not paying for it yet, so their feedback may well be positive. And so
Mm-hmm.
the question you need to ask at the end of that conversation is, we're thinking of charging $10 a month. Does that sound reasonable? Oh yeah, that's not too bad. Great. $10, right? Next person you talk to, here's the feature we're considering building. What do you think about it? Yep, sounds great. We're considering charging about $20 extra a month. Would you be against that price point? Oh, that sounds a little bit steep. Okay, so it's between 10 and 20. Right, now I've got my price point. Now I go to everyone and say, hey, we're building this feature. We're going to charge $15 a month for it. What do you think? Yeah, absolutely. That's a no-brainer for us. We pay that for sure. Okay, great. I've now got 20 customers at $15 a month extra. That's going to give me times the LTV. Here's the potential revenue I have when I build that feature, right? So the flip side of that equation is you go to those same customers and you say, we're building this feature A, B, and C. Do you like it? Yeah, it sounds okay, but we wouldn't really use that. Yeah, that's not too bad, but we use another platform for that and they're far cheaper. Yeah, I don't really see a need for that. I'm really just focused on the core. So now you've got that list of what not to build. Okay, there's no demand here. There's no future revenue here. I thought maybe the wider market wanted it, but when I asked my customers, my loyal customers that are using my product, that are champions of my product, they're not really interested. So I'm not going to build it. Right.
Mm-hmm.
That to me is the easiest way to do it. It's a pretty follow the data, identify revenue, mark revenue against future builds, and go from there. We have a very clearly defined case of this right now, right? We have our recover feature that pushes out emails, customized email templates over a long customized cadence to recover delinquencies and failed credit card payments. We had a couple of our customers ask us, we had one customer in particular ask us, hey, do you guys support SMS? And we didn't, but we added it to our feature list. And then over time, we started to see more and more customers say, and these particularly new customers onboarding, hey, we want to use Recover. Do you guys have SMS? And we say, oh, we don't, but we'll add it to the list, right? And you get to a point where there's this groundswell of support for a feature that you now have. You go back to that first customer, and for us as one of our bigger customers, and we say, hey, here's what the cost is going to look like. Here are the features we're considering building. What do you think? Yeah, absolutely. We pay for that. Like, great. We've now got a valid feature request. We've got now valid revenue behind it. We're going to build it, right? We're going to build it. We're going to give it to our biggest customer. They're going to pay us. So, yeah, follow the data. Sell to build. Don't build to sell. And make sure there's revenue associated with those features. Mm-hmm. Ask the hard question. How much would you pay for it?
Or do you find that like founders are resistant to that specifically? Like asking how much?
It's such an awkward question, right? How much would you pay for that? You're like, oh, it's a dirty word. But it's more often than not, people are going to say, oh, like, what's the response? Like, no.
Yeah.
Okay. Like, I wouldn't pay for it. Great. Now I know. Like, that's people. It's the same thing. They can only say no, right? Or they can only say, like, give you a price point that is unreasonable, and now you know. Sometimes you got to get past that awkward stage and just ask the hard question. How much
have
is
you
it
ever
worth
gotten?
I
don't know.
I think the framing. Yeah, that's the thing too. Like, I think it's hard for them to put a price point on it. That's why you can lead in that conversation by saying, we're considering charging X. Do you think that's reasonable, right? And they might say, oh, but how are you going to, scale that? And you go, well, every new user you add will be an additional X or whatever it might be. Like, I think going in there with don't say to them, what would you be willing to pay? Say, we're considering charging this much. What do you think about that? Because it gives them an anchor, a reference point. Especially if it's something that they can't compare it to, a competitor or something else readily, then lead with an actual price point.
Cool. Nice.
Awesome. All right. That's an easy one. Build to sell, don't sell to build. Sorry, sell to build, don't build to sell. Wrong way around. Yeah. All right. This one here I think is really good and very topical and very current is struggling with pricing my AI tool. Need some thoughts. Building an AI tool, hit a wall with pricing. It can make or break adoption, but I feel stuck. It's an AI tool where usage depends on tokens. That's pretty similar to most LLMs at the moment. Thinking of going as a pay-as-you-go model. For example, charging X dollars for 1 million tokens. And if someone wants 2 to 3, the price doubles, triples accordingly. The confusion, I'm not sure if this is the best approach for early users. Should I instead go with subscriptions like $20 a month for X amount of tokens, or a hybrid model, base subscription plus pay as you go? Want to keep things simple, et cetera, et cetera. So I think this isn't unusual. A usage-based model isn't unusual. It's just the fact that it's now applied to AI, right? And so we come back to fundamental pricing theory. It is, are you covering your costs and are you making money? If you're
Hmm.
not covering your costs and you're not making money, then you're relying on rapid user acquisition in order to scale and then monetize later, right? Uber, Airbnb, etc., where you're running at a loss until such a time as you can become profitable. And when I look at it that way, you then need to have additional capital and runway in order to run that strategy.
Hmm.
If you're bootstrapped and you can't run that strategy, then your minimum price point needs to be enough to cover COGS, right, to keep the machine turning.
Hmm.
If we then look at the user side and how likely people are to adopt certain pricing models for early stage AIs, I think that a base subscription amount is appropriate for access to the platform, which then gives you a predictable amount of revenue per month.
Hmm.
And then you look at the COGS associated with the token model as a, like they mentioned, as a on top of that. So platform plus usage. So that way, at least you're locking in a recurring amount of revenue that you can then use to continually support the business growth. And then you're giving the users flexibility to scale up or down as you need to. So we work with a company called Ring Capture, and they are an SMS one-time password validator tool, easy installed widget, and you're then able to validate users' phone numbers as they sign up. They can use that as a sign-in method. And their model is a $49 base subscription plus SMS usage, pay as you go. The $49 also contributes to their bill. So you get up to $49 of free credit per month, and then you pay on top of that. So that's another way to offer users flexibility with a little bit of a hook to say, yes, you're going to pay $49 minimum, but that will come off your total bill. And when we talk about SMS, we're talking about 0.02, you know, per SMS.
Hmm.
You can afford to absorb that as they go over that cost, and the COGS are quite low, aside from actually paying for the SMS. So I think my point there is I think a base subscription is great to establish repeatable recurring revenue, and then look at what bands of usage above that you could offer your clients and make sure it's effective bands. Yeah.
He also like talked about like just doing straight up SaaS to start out and just doing like a subscription model.
Yeah.
Um, would would that not be advisable even if he is just starting out?
They could.
Versus
Again, it depends on whether your users, there's obviously context behind the tool that you need to
right.
know about. Yes, it's token based, but
Hmm.
what's the rate of token consumption, and what's the
Hmm.
scale that's expected from your user base, right?
Hmm.
Is this something where they only need one response per day, or is it something where there's like a live, ongoing query of an agent or something like that, where the token consumption will be quite high? Because if the volatility of token consumption is quite erratic,
Hmm.
then you might find yourself a fixed subscription model won't suit, right? Whereas if you think there's very low variability in total token consumption, then
Hmm.
absolutely go pure SaaS and go, tier one starts at $9.99 a month for up to 500 tokens. Tier two, $19.99 a month for up to 1,000 tokens. Like you could
Hmm.
absolutely do that. There's nothing wrong with that at all. It's just how much volatility do you expect in your model, and if you allow for overages, like if it is a hard line where you say you can't go over that subscription tier, do you automatically upgrade them? Is their
Hmm.
service shut down until they pay to upgrade to the next token? And then if they do upgrade to that next tier and their consumption drops down the next day, do they then downgrade? And you start to see all these metrics that move between
Oh yeah.
expansions, contractions, right?
Hmm.
Um, these are all the questions you need further context on what the actual consumption of the token looks like in order to
Hmm.
effectively manage a pricing structure there. But yeah, I agree. Go pure SaaS. If there's low volatility in the consumption, it's more predictable and it's easier to stomach for your users.
Hmm.
Absolutely. If the usage is more volatile and there's the potential to see rapid expansion and then rapid contraction depending on the day, I'd suggest a bit more of a hybrid approach.
Hmm. Cool. Nice. Well, I think that was it, right?
Awesome. Yeah, good little bevy of questions there.
Yeah.
Again, some topical, some current, others evergreen.
Hmm.
Productivity hacks for individuals, team burnout, and building a great product but lacking marketing. That's sort of a common thread we see across the board. And then moving into struggling with pricing.
Hmm.
That is a persistent question. And now we're starting to talk about the specific emerging market of, I should say, established market of AI tools. By now, we've seen them go around the boy and back again. So AI tools are very much established, and I think a lot of founders are struggling with how to effectively make money
Pricing.
off them, price them
Yeah.
effectively, keep their users happy without spending too much on bigger models. So, yeah, good questions today. Really enjoyed discussing them, and hopefully our community gets something out of it.
Hmm. Awesome.
Great. All right. Thanks, Andrea. We'll talk again soon.
Thanks, Luke. Bye.